Hello there, middle school students. This video is going to walk you through a few of the different question types and tools that you might see on the upcoming California State test. These questions were taken from the CASP website, which the address is caaspp.org. On this page, the third green link is called Practice and Training Tests, which I will click now. There are a number of tests that middle school students can take as practice here, but the two we're going to focus on today are the Math Grade 6 through 8 training test and the ELA Grade 6 through 8 training test. We'll start with the math. On question 1, you begin to get a feel for what the look of the screen will look like when you're taking the test. On the top left, there are navigation tools which will allow you to go back, forward, save, or pause the test. We'll talk more about those later. On the right, there are the general tools such as a calculator, a zoom out, or a zoom in function. These can be used on any question where you see them. Finally, on each question as well, next to the number, there are context tools. A tutorial video will show you how to do that question. A notepad will allow you to take notes. Or this, mark for review, will allow you to put a mark on this question saying you want to go back and review it later. We'll go ahead and take that off for now. Now for question number 1, what the question is asking me to do is say Micah claims that the base of this prism must be a square. They want us to use the connect line tool to draw a base that shows Michael's claim is incorrect. The add line tool and the connect line tool are on the top of the graph. You see a delete tool, an add point tool, and the one that they tell us to use, the connect line tool. If you click on any of these, in this case connect line, it turns gray. And now it says select 2 points to connect or press and drag to create and connect points. So if I create a point here and then I drag and create another point here, I've just made a line with 2 points on either side of it. I could now do another line at the same point and move it down to here. Another one down to here, and another one up to here. Whatever type of shape the question is asking for is what you'll want to draw. Let's say you make a mistake and you actually didn't want this last line here. What you have to do now is choose the delete tool and go to those points. This one, we'll delete those two. This one here, because it's connected to this one, we'll delete just that one. If the question asks you to add a point as opposed to a full line, you could use the add point tool and click any point on the graph where you'd like to add the point that they're asking for. When you are done and satisfied with your answer, you will click next. Question number 2 says to use the equation tool to create an expression that could be used to determine the area of this trapezoid. This down here is the equation tool. I know the formula for the area of a trapezoid is 1/2 times b1 plus b2. So first I'm going to need a fraction. The tools on the bottom are the different things that you could add to this equation. This one right here that looks like a fraction is in fact a fraction with a numerator and a denominator. Clicking on that puts a fraction bar in my entry space. The cursor is currently on the numerator, which I want to be 1, so I'll click it. And then I will move the cursor to the bottom, the denominator, and click 2 for 1/2. Now, if I added the parentheses next, they would do that in the bottom of my fraction, which I don't want. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that now. And I'm going to move the cursor with the click of the mouse to the right of this fraction. And now I will go ahead and add my parentheses. Base 1 is 9 inches, so I'll go ahead and put 9, plus base 2 is 6 inches, so I'll go ahead and put 6 there. When I'm satisfied with my answer, again, I will go ahead and click next. Question 3 simply says to fill in this table based off the situation above, and I do that simply by clicking in each box and typing in the answer that I would like to have there. I'll do that now, and when I'm done, I will click next. We are now on question 4. So if we look at the top of the screen, we see a drop down and it's on number 4. Now that we've done questions number 1, 2, 3, they are also in our drop down, and at any point in the test you could always go back to a question that you have previously answered and go and change your work or edit the work that you've done. For now, let's stick to question number 4. Question number 4 we have to read carefully because it says select all numbers from the list. Whenever it says select all or more than one, you can put a check mark by as many answers as you think fit the correct answer. When you're done, click next. Question number 5 is a drag question, and it says to drag these ordered pairs the correct spot where they go. That being said, I will take each and I will drag them where I think that they should go. Question 6 asks me to determine whether each statement is true or false, and when I do, I will place a check mark by either one for each statement. Question number 7 is a simple multiple choice question with one answer, so I either have to choose A, B, C, or D. Let's say, like I said before, I'm unsure of the answer to this. One option I have is to click on this context tools and click mark for review. Now you see this 7 has a little page mark on it, and when I go later to review the test, you'll see that there's a checkbox by this one telling me to go and review it later. I haven't entered an answer yet. If I try to click next before I enter an answer, I get this error message, which says I must answer all questions before moving to the next page. Even if I'm unsure of the answer and I mark it to go back later, I still have to, for the time being, enter what I think is my best guess. I'll go ahead and click C for now, and I'll remember later to go back and look at this question. Now clicking next will allow me to move on to question number 8. On this particular test, it tells me there are only 8 questions, so we're now on to the last question. The question says select the height of the liquid in the prism, and if I go over to this prism and click, let's say at 5.5, you see it fills up to 5.5 inches. If I think the correct answer is 8, simply click 8 or 3 or 2 or whatever you think the correct answer is. Now that we're on the last question, you will see that when I click next, something different happens. A message comes up and tells me I have answered all the questions. When you have finished checking your answers, click the End Test button. I'll click OK, and now that I've done that, I see that a new button has appeared at the top of my screen. It's the End Test button. It tells me I can now go back and check all my answers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8, by clicking on them, and when I've done that, I can go ahead and click End Test. You have reached the end of the test. I'll go ahead and click Yes to continue. Now this is my final review page. You see all 8 questions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 here. At this point, I get one more chance to review my final answers. Remember for question 7, we marked it as we were unsure, and you see there's now a flag with a check mark near that question. That's the one that we wanted to go back to. We can go ahead and do that now, simply by clicking on that number. When you click on that number, you're taken back to question 7. We had put the answer was C, but let's say you remember how to do this question correctly and you realize the correct answer was B. You could change that now. If you want, you can go ahead and mark it, the review item. You can unmark that. And then when you're done, again, reviewing as many questions as you like, you'll click End Test. Confirm. And finally, once I've checked all my answers, I feel confident that they are right, I'll go ahead and click Submit Test. Confirm that I would like to do this, and then I will be taken to a logout screen, which I will go ahead and do now for the math test. Now that we've looked at some of the questions from the grade 6 through 8 math test, we'll switch over to the grade 6 through 8 ELA test. Before starting the ELA test, your system asks you to do a sound check. Make sure that your earphones are plugged in completely to your computer, and then click on the speaker to see if a sound plays. If you heard a sound, you will click Yes. If you did not hear a sound, you will raise your hand quietly to let your teacher know. Many questions on the English Language Arts test have a passage that you have to read, and then questions below or beside it that you respond to. In this question, I'm supposed to read this passage and then write 1 or 2 paragraphs about the passage. At the bottom, there's this blank space for me to write my paragraphs. Once I've written all that I need to write for this answer, I'll go ahead back to the top and click Next, taking me to question number 2. On question number 2, there's a passage on the left side of the page and a question on the right. The passage is kind of scrunched over here on the left. If I want to expand this to make it easier to read, I could click these double arrows at the top and it will open up so it's a full page. Once I'm done reading all of this passage, I can click the double arrows again so that I could see the question that I'm supposed to answer. This question is also one where you type your answer into the text box. Question 3 also has a passage that you'll read first, and then question 3 is a two-part question. First it says answer part A, what is most likely the author's intent? Let's say B. And then part B says which sentence from the text best illustrates the inference made in part A. So based off what answer you chose for part A, it's going to impact the answer that you choose for part B. I'm going to go ahead and click this one, and now I've answered both parts A and parts B. Question 4 has a presentation that you were to listen to in order to answer these two questions. To listen to the presentation, all you have to do is make sure that your earphones are in and click play.
In the novel Around the World in 80 Days, the character Phil...
You will go ahead and listen to the entire passage and then use what was said to answer the question or questions on the right. Question number 5 has you read this prompt and then fill in the table below. Does claim number 1 best supported by source 1, source 2, both sources, or neither? For each of the claims, you will say which source best supports them, and when you're done, click Next. We've come to question 6, which as we can see at the top is the last question on this test, and it's a simple read this passage and answer the multiple choice question. This one says choose a sentence that best adds a transition, so there's only one correct answer. Now that we've put this here, you see if we click Next, it tells us we've finished, and we could go ahead and click the End Test button. If we'd like to review some of our work before we click that, we can do so using the drop down. I'll go ahead and click End Test now. I'll confirm that in fact I do want to end the test, and once I confirm that, I'm taken to my final review page. On the final review page, I could click back to any 6 of those questions I just answered and review them, just like I could on the math test. Once you've reviewed all the questions thoroughly and you're confident of your answers, you will click Submit Test, confirm that you'd like to do this, and once again, log out of the system. I hope these videos helped, and I wish you the best of luck on your upcoming test.